And now for our first panel. They will focus on understanding the silence, and they will talk about the evolving landscape of mental health and addiction. Our panelists are Dr. Christopher Chok, Dr. Elaine Chew, and Mr. Bradley Bird. Moderating the panel is Dr. Roland Yao, Executive Director of Boys Town and co-chair for today's symposium.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. But
morning.
First, can we show a video?
Of course, we'll do that. Okay, panelists, can I have you on board? And then we will get the videos played very quickly, all right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just before we start, we must thank the school principal for allowing us to use the venue. Mr. Bradley! Over there for you, please. Okay. All right. Once again, just before we start, I'm very encouraged to have all of you with us this morning. All right. Without further ado, the programs will proceed, and we want some engagement in a short while. Now, by the way, I was introduced that I'm the executive director of Boys Town, right? And I used to be a youth myself at Boys Town. So later on, I will engage you, not in a very useful way all the time, huh? Okay, but we will see how it goes in a short while. Okay, so let us begin, all right, quickly. Thank you. There's a video to be shown, so perhaps we will do that right away. Thank you.
Today, I'd like to tell you about the K-pop situation in Singapore. K-pop started entering the Singapore market sometime in 2024. But it wasn't until 2025 when we started seeing videos of young people being in a zombie-like state around Singapore. Some people passed out at bus shelters, others at void decks around Singapore. And we started seeing very dramatic car accidents in Singapore where cars will mount grass verges and go across the road. And these types of accidents were very rare in the past. Since September 2025, when the government cracked down on vapes, there have been multiple seizures of vapes across the island. And these seizures were not just for nicotine vapes, but also for etomidate-laced vapes as well. Some of our patients tell us that they accidentally stumbled upon a K-pod, thinking that it was a nicotine vape. Is there a difference between a K-pod and a nicotine vape? On the surface, they all look the same. However, from what our patients tell us, a K-pod is usually priced around $70 a pod, whereas a nicotine pod typically would be around $20. When we discuss this with our patients, it is actually quite difficult to mistake a K-pod for a nicotine vape. In early rates around September 2025, 1 in 3 vape seizures was a K-pod. However, this has dropped quite dramatically since enforcement started. So what goes into a K-pod? In Singapore, the drug most often found in the K-pod is etomidate. Etomidate is an anesthetic agent designed for single use for a short period of time. When placed in the K-pod and inhaled repeatedly, etomidate produces a euphoric state as well as a dissociative state. Our patients tell us that they felt irritable sometimes when they were high on K-pod, and sometimes they just felt totally zoned out and not knowing what is going on. But what are the dangers of inhaling an etomidate-laced vape? Firstly, an etomidate-laced vape can cause respiratory depression or sudden unconsciousness when the dosage is too high. Many of our patients come in and they are in a state of mild to moderate hypokalemia. Over the long run, repeated etomidate use causes adrenal insufficiency. And we noticed that some of our patients have very dark skin color, probably linked to this effect. Etomidate can also cause a dissociative state with severe hallucinations and irritability. When should a family member suspect that someone in the house is using a K-pod? Firstly, you see unusual apparatus in the house, and this may be the first sign that the loved one is using a vape. Many of these vapes are also laced with fruity flavors. Someone on K-pod may have bloodshot eyes and have sudden, unexplained weight loss. They may also find that the loved one is getting more irritable, having insomnia, being more secretive about their behaviors, and if they are in school, they may experience failing grades. When we talk to our patients, there are many myths about using K-pot. Some feel that it's a legal high, and they feel that it is safe and it is something that is just for fun. The truth is that intermediate laced vapes are dangerous and can cause sudden loss of consciousness, a dissociative state, when a person can do things without full consciousness and get themselves into accidents. A second myth is that K-pots can relieve stress and anxiety. The truth is that etomidate, being an adrenal suppressant, can lead to increased irritability and insomnia. Another myth is that vaping is safer than smoking. The truth is that vaping can cause sudden asthmatic attacks as well as damage the tissues of the lungs. In March 2026, Parliament enacted the Tobacco and Vaporizers Control Act. Under this act, if someone is caught for nicotine vaping, they can be fined up to $10,000 for buying, using, or possessing vapes. If someone is found consuming K-pot, under the new law, they can be in prison up to 10 years or face a $20,000 fine. They will also have to go for mandatory rehabilitation, and recalcitrant users may have to enter a drug rehabilitation center. Where to find help in Singapore? National Mind Line 1771 is a free 24-hour service whereby the public can call in about any mental health issue or find a vape-related service. Members of the public can also call Quitline, a free confidential telephone counseling service at 1-800-438-2000. NAMS also provides voluntary treatment for K-pot abuse, as well as a range of other addictions. And up to the end of August 2026, treatment for K-pot abuse is free of charge. Vape users can also call the I Quit program at the Health Promotion Board, and the Health Promotion Board offers personalized quit plans and SMS support.
Okay, thank you so much for the video to begin with. All right, as we begin the moderation in progress, usually we have questions from the audience. And by the way, the questions are just right in front of us in a short while. We will pick them up very quickly. But as a moderator, I'm biased. Why is it so? Because there are issues that I will love very much to be addressed. But I would like the audience to answer our questions. How about that before we start, right? Now, our former our Minister of Education, Mr. Chan Chun Sing, and now is the Minister for Defense, there's one thing that he does, usually he says, Ki Chiu can. Ki Chiu means raise hand can. All right, huh? So now I got 3 questions for you, and later on, there'll also be questions, probably 3 for each of our panelists in a short while. Now, audience, you get to do this with me so that we can kind of sense where our audience are and from as well. All right? Now, first and foremost, you know friends, colleagues with some form of addiction or mental wellness issue, Ki Chiu. Wow. Okay, hands down. Secondly, you have encountered youth children and you work very hard on wanting to help them overcome addictions or mental health concern, Ki Chiu. Very good, okay? All right. The next question is, I wouldn't ask you what kind of addiction you have, Ken. We don't need to Ki Chiu, that one, okay? Now, the third things that I'm going to highlight here is, you are very concerned because sometimes you do not know what to do, or those you have tried, Ki Chiu. Wow, audience, thank you very much. Give us a round of applause. Now, the reason I do that is because if we are concerned about children and youth mental wellness and issues regarding to addictions, and the issues that here we highlight as what Dr. Chris mentions, and in fact, I love your T-shirt, you know, the polo T say 1771, okay? That later on you walk around, we'll all be calling you the hotline in a short while, in a way. Okay, now to begin with, right, all right, so tell us, what are some of the concerns that evolve with regards to youth addictions, mental wellness? Are there any correlating concerns there? I'm going to evolve the questions around that way. All right. Secondly, we'll also be talking about how we see the latest trend and programs development that will help, or if not, has been in progress in helping our children and youth. I use the word children and youth because it can apply across the board. Many of us here are working with younger children or youth, all right, and in alike. And of course, the elements of school. What can the school do? What could the school also provide support? Now, I also want to mention that it's not just about the schools, teachers, or staff, caregiver, as all of us are concerned, individuals, party as well. All right. Now, later on, I'm going to have Dr. Elaine share a slide and little sharing, and then passing the time to Mr. Bradley, the school principals of AJII, in a short while. Maybe perhaps I will let Dr. Chris share a little about some of your observation and the work that you do concerning about children and youth addictions that you realize is a concern in our society today. You have shared some of that with us already. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So since 1st September, when government cracked down on vapes and started the mandatory program in IMH NAMS, IMH NAMS takes care of the adults, so above 21, and MSF takes care of the youth, adolescents under 21. But just on the IMH side alone, can you imagine, since 1st September, how many cases have come to my center because of the enforcement? Would you like to guess?
I guess,
Guess.
I passive lah. 1,002 lah.
Too many. More.
Wow. Hey,
If
this is good news,
1,002, I
this is
wouldn't
good
be
news,
here. Okay, I'll be seeing patients.
That's good news. Okay, like.
Yeah, so we have had 200 mandated patients just above 21, and I can tell you that there's another group under 21 which I don't see, but MSF colleagues here would know. I do not know that number, but just for the adults, it's already 200. I have another 100 that walked in on their own for voluntary treatment. So this is just only, 5 months only into the whole program. But what we observed about all these young people is that firstly, young people, if you all remember when you all were young, last time we all have this very wide range of emotions, right? You love something, or you hate something, right? Now at my age, everything is okay, Right? It's somewhere in the middle. We don't go like, oh, I really hate you, or oh, I really love you. No, it is okay. The only thing I love is SJI, my school. Okay, I love that deep. But that's because it's a stage of development for teenagers, and the teenage stage, people have big swings of emotions. They are novelty seeking. They are thrill seeking. I'm sure all of you, if given a choice at 21, 20 years old, you'll go and bungee jump. If you hit 50 and you got arthritis and maybe got some other pain or one of the sun cow, then you'll be more worried about doing that bungee jumping. But not so for the 21-year-old. And it's because of all these issues. That's why they're more susceptible to drug use. Yeah. And currently, the most favored drug for young people is really cannabis. I mean, this is for young people. As they go into adulthood, then it becomes meth. Of course, young people do abuse meth. It's just that it's a bit expensive, about 70 to 100 bucks. Cannabis slightly cheaper, and it's kind of like the first stop for their abuse. But that was before K-pop came into the market. So now, right now, because K-pop is still in the market, I cannot tell you the statistic, but I work with Health Sciences Authority, which is the enforcement agency. Despite all their efforts, K-pop is still coming into our market. And that's why I still have a steady flow of referrals to my center on a weekly basis, because in spite of all the enforcement, people are still abusing it. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, that is alarming, although I guess too many. But I think that 200, 100, and over past 5 months is already very alarming. And I hear something that is important here is it is accessible by young people. Now, parents, concern? Do you check your children's bag? What happened if you found out the device in their bags? Immediately you call 1771. There's a concern here because these are our children and youth, and they are accessible with these drugs and these potentials. And later on, we're going to explore what are the things that we can do, all right, as caregiver, as youth workers, as social worker, as counselor, as practitioner. I'm going to pass the time to Dr. Elaine a little more with regards to some of the insights that you have over the course of your work at KKH and also as a practitioner yourself. Yeah, maybe I pass the time to you to just share a little insights with us as you go.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Elaine Chu from KK Hospital. I'm probably the only pediatrician here in the audience. And a lot of my work is with children and adolescents with eating disorder, like what Dr. Winslow mentioned just now, towards maybe thinking about like behavioral type of addiction in food. So what we have seen over the past couple of years in KKH is we've seen a huge increase in the cases of restrictive eating disorder presenting to KKH. And the reason why they present to Children's Hospital is because they already have a lot of health impact. What happens is that they will come into the hospital and their heart rate is low, their blood pressure is low, so that's why they come into the Children's Hospital for medical stabilization. And we know that that's the short-term consequence of malnutrition from eating disorders. There are also a lot of long-term health impacts on their health in terms of like their bone density, mental health, as well as their quality of life. There's also a high economic burden of eating disorder. We know that it takes a long time to treat. Besides just impacting the young person, it also impacts on the families as well as the caregivers. So we do know that what we are seeing is the tip of the iceberg, right? Because we see about 140 cases presenting to KKH per year, the new cases. We know that there is more cases of eating disorder out there in the community, but because of a lot of delayed help seeking, so a lot of them may not present to health services. But below the iceberg, we know that there are a lot of young people with dieting behaviors. It's pretty common, right? I mean, a lot of maybe even adults may feel that, oh, dieting is normal, dieting may be good for you, but actually we do know that dieting is a risk factor for development of eating disorder. And based on the National Youth Mental Health Survey that was published, we know that 1 in 5 young people have moderate to severe body shape concerns. So these are quite significant because if we think about it, 20% of our young people have got body shape concerns. And those with body shape concerns has obviously higher risk of developing mental health symptoms like depression, stress, as well as anxiety. So that's why it's really important that we move towards early detection and intervention as well as prevention of all these risk factors for eating disorders. And currently it's still in the early phase. We are working on this prevention and early intervention for eating disorder with MOE as well as MOH and the social service agencies. Yeah, so that's the current work that we are working on for eating disorder.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, it has been the concerns along the way here that we see younger people that eventually, unfortunately, or some way, go into the process of not eating or having issue with regards to eating disorder. So, Dr. Elaine, later on, we are going to explore what are some of the work that as caregiver or any form of mother that we can explore in order to help our younger people deal with these situations. So I'm going to just kind of prepare you to share your insights with us in a short while along the way. Okay. Now, Mr. Bradley, as a school principal, as an educator, you see students, you see them coming in when they were younger, you see them learning hard, one day you see them graduate. The process is actually very enduring, very encouraging. But along the way, there are also situations that's not academically driven. Issues with regards to addictions, issue with regards to vaping, perhaps. All right, we also see that before governments step in the necessary intervention, youth were actually having some form of these devices, as I mentioned earlier. Now, one core insight that we hope to gain from you here is, what are some of the work that has been done in progress and dealing with children or students with some form of mental health concerns, or specifically, in your observations, any specific addictions that you have observed over the couple of years? Now, again, whenever I ask this question, I need to do a qualifying. Not that all our children and youth have issue, Ken? Oh, correct, right? So, but there are concerns that along the way, we are going to pick up some of the youth, children, students that perhaps require our attention. Mr. Bradley, please.
Firstly, a very warm welcome to you all to St. Joseph's Institution International. You are very welcome on our campus, and we're wonderful to have Caritas with us today. Very hard question for me to answer because we don't have any of those students at our school.
Woohoo!
I would be a silly man to think that for a second. It happens everywhere in society, and there's no discriminator based on who you are, where you go to school, any of those sort of things. We have it. And every school in the world has it. And if you think you don't, then you're putting your head in the sand and you're kidding yourself. What do? We go to work with our parents. We really do go to work with it and partner with our parents. And that is incredibly strong for us. We put support and provision around these areas. And I applaud all of you here today because you are on the front line. You are the people who are making a difference in the lives of these youth. More than ever today, the youth of Singapore are struggling with addiction. And there's lots of studies going on out there at the moment. I don't know whether you know it, but the universities, the major universities here are all engaged in studies around addiction. And they're talking about the impact of it. 28% of all youth or disabilities or issues now are around mental health. And that comes from an NUS study. Okay? It's really clear around that you've got to build things like resilience into your students more than ever now. NUS have done a study on it. 74% of kids who are strong in the area of resilience will have no issues academically. That correlation is huge. We're a school. Our business is about education. And in the past, it's been about academic education, but that's changed. Our job now as educators is to educate the whole person. And when we talk about SJO International, we talk about a holistic approach. The mental health and well-being of our whole community, not just our students, our staff, and our parents is paramount to us. Because if we can't deliver that to our students every day, a good mental health position, then we can't expect them to be well. Okay? We've got to be parents. And we know as a school we are not the primary parent. We are part of their life for part of the time of the day. And we hope that they love that and we give them all the support that we can. But people who have children are the primary educator. They're the parent. They're the ones who make the decisions. So we've got to make sure that we're in line with that. The triangulation of our programs is home, parent, together, school and student. And the student is at the centre of every single thing we do as a school. Okay, so we have front-loaded our parents with so much. We bring in experts from around the world. We have that luxury of being an international school. So our staff are from also all over the world, have worked and lived in different situations. So we gain that expertise from our staff. But I'll tell you what, my number one job as a principal is to make sure my staff are well. And my staff can deliver. So you have to be well. Okay, if you're not well going to work, if you're not in prime condition to deliver the service that you need to, then you can't expect to make a difference. And so we put a huge amount of energy and effort. And I think since COVID 2018, there's been a massive awakening in Singapore around mental health and about the importance of well-being of our workforce. Okay, and may we continue to grow that, and we will here at SJO International.
Thank you so much. And I truly echo what you say is that when you are well, we are well in that way. So I want to also encourage all of us in your own capacities, look into how your mental wellness could be one of the trigger points for your care roles in times to come, or in fact, right now. All right, now, we always wanted to talk about what can we do, the action part. So just now we hear about keynote speaker talking about what actually happened at the back of our mind, on our brain, along the way. So perhaps I will just ask Dr. Chris with regards to if prevention is better than cure. Let me make the assumption for now, okay? All right? And I know that sometimes preventions need not necessarily work all the time. Now, from your own experience and what you have seen in terms of patients encounter researched, if you are to advise, all right, practitioners here, what are some of the things that we could do, But prior to that, the questions also look upon, are there things that need to be done or happens beforehand, before preventions could happen?
Thanks for the question. So for people who get into addictions, there are a few components. First component is your risk. So some of the risk is actually genetic in nature. When we mean genetic, it means that firstly, personality can pass from parent to child. And we note in our work that many people with very severe addictions also have other family members with addictions. So we know there's a certain genetic vulnerability that runs through families. The other issue about genetics is in your personality. Now, all those in your audience, around 40% of your personality actually comes from your parents. So if you feel you're nothing like your parent, you better ask some serious questions. Yeah.
We need another conference for that later.
Yeah. So the personality factor runs in a certain way, because some people, because of their personality, they are quite chongster type, hedonistic, love to get high, love to have fun, love to have thrill seeking. Whereas some people are more kiasi, kiasu, very anxious, want to be in a safe place. So these people are protected. But the chongster type, they are more vulnerable because they are always seeking pleasure, seeking thrill. The third issue with personality is that certain mental health conditions like the severe depression and schizophrenia and bipolar are also have genes running through that make them at a higher risk. So all these factors put someone at a more vulnerable state to addictions. The second is our environmental factors, which is social in nature. Who you choose your friends with. Those people of you who go and choose people who go and do exercise, chances you'll be fit. Those people who want to choose friends who are drinkers, chances are you drink. And those, of course, you smoke, you'll find yourself smoking. So for the teenager, it is their peer group. If they find those people who are staying out late, doing all these drugs and K-podding and all that, then they are more vulnerable to it, because they are, as a teenager, they are very influenced to peer pressure. The last big environmental factor is all the trauma that the child has gone through in his life. Technically, we call them ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So if the child has gone through multiple traumas in his life, like seeing his mother being whacked by father, or the parents are incarcerated because of their drug use, or there's domestic violence and things like that, these people are again more vulnerable to addictions. So when it comes to prevention, I think we have to address the social factors. So the bopian, you're born like that, live like that, die like that because of your genetic factors. But for the social factors, I think there are opportunities for prevention. If you see something, say something. In your neighborhoods, if you see some domestic violence happening, you hear screams at night, please report them. And don't say, hey, not my business, that sort of thing. If recurrent domestic violence is a big risk factor. So if we can prevent all the ACEs, we can definitely help reduce the burden of addictions in our society. Secondly, of course, is helping parents should help their kids choose their friends. If parents need to be kaypoh, you can kaypoh about who they are hanging out with, because peer group is more important than anything. And lastly is prevention. Lastly in prevention is really control. We need to control screen time, we need to control access to drugs, make sure you know what your kids are doing, because some of these things like nicotine, K-pods, as well as cannabis, they're highly addictive in nature. So you need to jaga your kids for those reasons.
Well, thank you. Can we give Dr. Chris a round of applause first? Why? I'm glad that my mom sent me to Boys Town long time ago. She had decided to me and said I need to choose a group of friends differently. Secondly, I also want to thank the audience here that today, if you are not parents, you also have a role. You are youth worker, you are social worker. Some parents are not able to take certain decisions. You have to facilitate, am I right? In certain decisions that, all right, perhaps the youth under your care require to choose, set necessary positive boundary. If I hear that as an onset, as a summary. Now, then I have a problem here, Dr. Elaine. So how? Choices. Because to me, eating disorder, perhaps, please educate us, right? It is an issue at the back of our mind, something that is genetically that triggered, Or perhaps some part of my life, I make a certain decisions, and that itself trigger where I am today. Now, on that rationale or the question is that, are they youth or children choose in certain behavior or in certain habits that eventually result to some of this disorder further, or there are more to that that we should also be aware of? And to add on to the question along the way, so if it's choices or something regards to our environment, something that is decision that we take, and are there any actions, are there any programs, models that you would like to advise us further in the course of your work that perhaps practitioners could also take insights from? Thank you.
Yeah, so in our work with families as well as young people with eating disorder, one of the key message that we have is that developing an eating disorder is not a choice, right? It's a mental health disorder. And certainly, like what Dr. Chok say about addiction, there are genetic vulnerabilities. So families with positive mental health condition are, of course, their children are at higher risk of developing eating disorders. The personalities also matter. So personality for the eating disorders are the more perfectionistic personalities. So because of their perfectionistic tendency, so they are also at higher risk of developing eating disorder because they want to kind of like get into the healthy eating, do a lot of healthy exercise, stay slim and all. So certainly these are the vulnerabilities, and but they are also non-modifiable, right? So, but there are also environmental factors that we do know of can increase the risk factors for eating disorders. Just now I was talking about the iceberg, right? Yep, so in the iceberg, we know that dieting behaviors are risk factors for developing eating disorders. So what can families, what can the community or maybe schools play a role in? I think that it's important for us not to encourage dieting and not to normalize it. Because when we normalize dieting, you know, it's quite common, right? We hear people, oh, I'm dieting, I'm on diet, I'm on diet. Almost like it's like normal, very casual. But we do know that such dieting behaviors can predispose to disorder eating, maybe not eating disorder, but disorder eating behaviors. Another major factor that we all know of is, of course, social media, especially like image-based social media. They can promote a lot of body image dissatisfaction, because a lot of the images posted on social media is, of course, a very fit influencer showing what he or she eats in a day, clean eating, healthy eating, and all of these may seem quite harmless when we first look at it. Oh, it's someone, you know, trying to look fit. I want to follow the influencer. But actually, you know, for those with risk factors, they can then, you know, spiral into a cycle of, you know, overtly restricting or doing a lot of exercises that can be harmful for them. So social media, especially if the young person is very into the social media and follow what influencers say, that can further impact on their body image dissatisfaction, and that certainly can predispose them to development or eating disorder. What we do know of is that before a person develops eating disorder, they commonly have a lot of body image dissatisfaction. We may start much younger. One of the key factors that we know of is 10% of our patients were previously overweight. So they receive a lot of weight-related remarks, like you're fat, you know, you need to lose weight, or, you know, bullying in school, that's pretty common, or maybe on social media about your weight. So those are can cause a lot of trauma symptoms for them, like what Dr. Cho said about ACEs. So because of such weight-based bullying, it also can predispose them to development of eating disorders. So I think that those are the things we need to be aware of and be sensitive of in our communication with our young people or as parents, you know, not to tie the child's weight to their value, okay? Because when you tie their weight to their value, like, oh, if you are fat, it means that nobody will love you. So I think that when it does that, it actually will increase the risk of the child having an eating disorder, because they put their value based on their weight. Yeah, so I think that those are the early prevention and intervention that we can do as a community, right? to help to reduce all these risk factors for development of eating disorders. Yeah.
Thank you. In fact, what you have shared with us is insightful. When you mentioned about it is not just a choice because it's a form of mental disorder. The reason that I asked that and it kind of hit me along the way is because one day, just about 2 days ago, so I saw my daughter. I have a 16-year-old daughter. In front of a mirror, she said, "I'm fat." I said, "No, you're not fat." "No, I got no clothes to wear. I need to go for this event. I'm fat." Then after that, went into the whole thing about, oh, okay. Well, I realized the personality and the social media influence is actually getting kind of a concerns for parents or caregivers as well. Now, maybe I pause here before I pass the time to Mr. Bradley to talk about what are some of the roles, model, and opportunity that we can help support the kids in a short while, or children. Now, audience time, audience, key chew time, raise hands time, okay. So, again, all right, help me along and engage as we go along the way. You have youth who actually cannot distinguish the difference between mental health issue and just behavioral concern. So which means there's a concern about whether am I having a mental health concern or am I just, my mood is like that. Any one of you here have since your youth say, I think I got mental health concern. But actually it need not necessarily be the case. Anyone? Okay, good. Now, why do I say this? Because sometimes, as practitioner, not into research and full understanding, the issue is what is mental health? The concerns that when a youth display, can I have assessment? Do I need to do assessment? Or through some of the behavior, I could actually observe and say what kind of help and support would they need, am I right? Because the last thing that we want is labeling them immediately with some mental health concern. But actually, it may not be true. It could be a choice, or it could be just at the moment, all right, I think I'm fat. The kind of situations, right? Okay, hold that with me along the way. Now, let's go on. Mr. Bradley, you realize that sometimes youth in transitions, all right, as I mentioned the comment just now, and in fact, Dr. Eileen also highlighted the influence of social media, the aspects of accessibility in terms of certain drugs, for example. From your opinion, from the educator's perspective and from the caregiver perspective, you earlier mentioned we are not just educator, we are also caregiver. We are there to support. And I'm glad that the teachers internationally exposed to different environment, and they can give insights and input to the youth and the children here as well, the student here as well. From the educator perspective, what do you think are some important factors as youth are exposed to social media? They can be subjected to certain influence of personality. Do you see that there are certain things that we could do as educators or caregiver? Help us with certain perspective that perhaps will be useful as schools congregate with the most children and youth along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a big thing to unpack. How many hours have we got?
Good time.
I mean, I love what we're hearing from our colleagues. You know, it's very relevant, pertinent stuff about how our youth engage with things. Dr. Winslow this morning talked about the brain. I'm fascinated with the brain and understanding how our children think. When I first came into education, when we were at school, it was just about the academics, and I said that before. But now it's about so much more, and it's about unpacking what our kids go through every day. We were never exposed to what they are exposed to today. The way they learn is very different. The way they go about their daily routine is very different. And I think Doctor talked about it. What's the first thing every single person in this room does in the morning is they reach over and grab their phone and see what's happened the night before. Put your hand up if you do that. If you don't put your hand up, you're probably kidding yourself as well. All right? Because that's what we do. And that's the reality of it. And our kids have grown up with that. What did we do? We put a device in their hand at 2 years old. We enabled it. And now we're going to try and claw it back. What has the Singapore government done? They've banned vaping. They've banned mobile phones in schools. So I'm not a great believer of just bam, blanket banning things. I'm an educator. Our kids need to know why. And so we go to work with them about why. We want them to feel part of the community. We make them feel safe. We make them feel happy. We make them feel engaged. And when they are those things, then we can go to work on the why. Okay, the why is so important because it allows them to come to their own conclusions about this is not good for me. If we're telling them what to do all the time, that's when they rebel. That's why they go and do these things. Because you don't like to be told. They certainly don't like to be told. And they're seeing this stuff 24/7. If we do some work, we work very closely with Google in AI. We work very closely with some other companies because we need to know what's going on. Because we can't help our students in that space if we don't know the parameters of it. The reason why we put such deep care around our kids is because we know they've got issues. Does anyone know the average screen time of a 15-year-old in a day? It's more than 12 hours a day, okay? Some of our kids are 14 to 16 hours a day on their screens. That'll be a combination of their laptop and their phone. How do you learn? How do you stay healthy in that space? The algorithms that we see on social media, and you know it from your own usage. Once you watch something and you watch it through to the end, what comes up in 3 loops time? A very similar thing. And when they start watching these things online at all hours of the day and night because our parents don't police phones in their bedroom, it's a horrendous situation to be in. And then we have the situation that Dr. Lee talked about. Our kids become victims of what they see online. And then they try and emulate that. And then they become that. And then we've got to deal with that. So the education part of it is so important. And the Singapore government, by banning, has given us impetus to go to work in that space. Okay, so what do we do with it? The worry for us is that we can solve it at school, but it's when they go home to the parents that becomes the next layer of it, because the stress level comes with parents and young people in their relationships. So our job as a school is to build super healthy relationships so they've always got a safe space and they've always got a place that they can come and talk to us. And that's why we put so much effort into mental health here at the school. We have huge amount of counselling provision, our heads of grade, our tutors, all these people that are significant adults in their life that can help them balance the troubles. It's never been more complicated to be a child. Never, ever. With the things that they see and the things that are going on around them. And I guess the lies that are told to them on a daily basis by people around the world to try and take advantage of them. So it's a really tough place to be a young person. And again, I say to you, I applaud the work that you do with them because it's bloody tough. But thank you for doing it.
Let's give us a round of applause. Fellow workers, practitioners. In fact, when I just about to look into the question that the audience was asking, and thanks the administrative team for posting the question about what can we do as caregiver. Now, I use the word caregiver pretty broadly. It can be tutors, it can be teachers, it can be you yourself here sitting. Now, I want to highlight that is that when my chairperson, Miss Agnes of Caritas, mentions that, she's just right in front of me, by the way, okay? We shall focus on something that is critical in today's context. Children, youth, the futures of our nations and our society. If addiction has become a concern, if social media has become a concern, it's not one concern of one person, but a concern of the generations to come. Am I right? So therefore, I realize that there's a concern here, and a practitioner, we're always wanting to know what else can we do better. And I really want to applaud that Mr. Bradley always says, creating the environments of positiveness, getting them to make good choices. I think that's fantastic. All right? Now, 20 minutes, all right, 10 minutes before we round up the sessions, I want to get further insights because this is the only opportunity that we have. And later on, our two panelists are going to have further sessions, all right, on the breakout groups. Then more questions and more detail could go. But I'm going to treasure these 10 minutes. I'm going to pass the time to Dr. Chris, Dr. Elaine, and Mr. Bradley in a short while. Give us certain things that, as practitioners, here we are. how can we continue to support our youth in any way that you find that it will be useful for them? Now, I hope that the response to the question in a short while, something that we can carry out that tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday, okay? Tomorrow is not Saturday, So we go back to our workplace on Friday and say, let's try this. Let's do this. Let's be actionable. Are we okay? Need not be something fantastic with long-term plan, but something that we can carry out tomorrow to address certain concerns that you've sensed from the audience, from all of us. Your wisdom, please. Mr. Chris.
I think as mental health workers, be it a counselor, social worker, teacher, I think we need to play the long game. When I say the long game, I always tell this to my junior residents in training as well. We come to mental health, don't ever think that you can cure somebody just in 6 weeks and be done with it. And then if you get your dopamine high, we're not like surgeons, go and chop and finish, then you will feel good about yourself. So in mental health, it is to play the long game. And it may take months, if not years. I always remember one case I did helping a mother walk out of domestic violence. Took me 7 years before she found the courage to walk out of that relationship. In that 7 years, she's a professional by training someone. It's just that she came from a neighboring country, so she didn't feel empowered in Singapore. It took 7 years to get her to have that courage to go back in the workforce, start earning money, and eventually have the courage to just pack her children out, get a divorce, and go into a new stage of life. So we must know how to play the long game. What I can say for the mental health workers in the audience is that you've got to take care of yourself. You need to be in a good place to help your clients. And one of the expectations is that you may have to journey with this person for many years. Even if it doesn't, even you're in a secondary school, you have to pass on this child to the next stage of education. Or you receive a case because you're in polytechnic, and then they go on to the next stage of education. It is a long game that you have to play. I think that's something that's important, and your work is very nice to know that eventually you will have an impact on the kids that you work with. Two very nice things happened to me this year, which I'm really very, very thankful for. And it both happened on the park connector near my home. So in these two instances, of course, at different times, different parts of the year, two strangers came up to me and while I was doing my evening run, and both said that, are you this doctor from the armed forces last time? And I said, yes, I am. They said, you helped me a lot 15 years ago. I was going through a bad place last time, but I'm okay now, so I just wanted to stop you and thank you. Yeah. So in a sense that, of course, very nice for me. I got my dopamine hit, okay? But, I didn't even know who they were, I really didn't know who they were. I saw them 18 years old when I was with the armed forces last time, and, 15 years on, they're okay now. So, so just play the long game and know that your work is important.
Fellow you workers, it's not a one-time job, Ken. You sign for long-term, Ken. Okay? But I believe that what Dr. Chris also mentioned is indeed truthful. We don't see outcome immediate. We go for the impact. So when your heart is at the right place, I think we have interventions. But what you have also advised us is, do take care of yourself. Go for the evening runs, by the way. Somebody said, no, okay, all right. But I get your insight in such a way where it is important that we care for ourselves, do our self-examines, and along the way also look into how we can then inspire other people to also do likewise. Shall we just give Dr. Chris a round of applause for now? Well done. But Elaine, I will tell my daughter she's not fat, but she needs to look into how she's been influenced by social media. Okay, now, I'm going to ask the same question as well. We're going to have you for a couple of minutes more on stage before you have your other sessions later. Give us your insights. What can we do tomorrow as we go back to our workplaces. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess this is a good advertisement spot for me because we are doing early intervention training for schools as well as with social service agency in terms of picking up the early signs and symptoms of eating disorders. Because in my 10 years of work with eating disorder, there are certainly mental health symptoms that I know that a lot of the mental health providers are very good in picking up, but there are also other physical symptoms that sometimes mental health providers may not be so attuned or confident of picking up. So that's why we run an early intervention workshop that we work together with MOE and MOH on. So this is a pledge that everyone can then think about signing up for it, as well as learning more about what are the early signs and symptoms of eating disorders. We also develop a website on KKH where parents, you can direct parents to read out about it, what are the early signs and symptoms, what they can do in the very early stages so that the child do not develop a full-blown disorder. So certainly, I think that schools, community play a huge role, and all of us play a collective role in helping to recognize early so that we can prevent hopefully more cases of eating disorders.
Can we give a round of applause to Dr. Eileen to begin with? The invitation has been sent. Let's equip ourselves with further knowledge and competency. Later on, she will have a little booth and sign up. No need, it's actually on the websites already for you guys to go into that. So one of the actions to take here is what else can I learn further and perhaps bring another person whom you're working closely with. How about it? So that this is not a lonely journey. This becomes an enduring journey as we learn and to participate in good care for our children and young person. Last and definitely not least, finalizations. Mr. Bradley, look into we as educators alongside with you. Look into us as practitioners as we go back to our schools, our community tomorrow. Inspire us with your wisdom. Go ahead.
No small task. I think what I would say to you is keep upskilling yourself. Keep learning on the job. Keep your passion alive for it because that's what this needs. This is hard work. Okay, this is relational work. It's about building relationships with people. And, as both the doctors have said, it's a long-term game. You can't have someone come in. It's like when we educate someone, we get them from 4 years old and now we've got a preschool. So we get them from 2 years old. When they've had a 16-year SJI international education, you can tell because they have these incredible values. They've gone through a process. They understand. It's not to say that we don't have our ups and downs, right? Every journey is a roller coaster and we've all been on that. And so take your experience that you've learned. Don't try and impart that on someone, but just gently push them in the right direction. Work with them because every single person that you encounter will have a different set of symptoms. They'll have a different set of issues, okay? And so the uniqueness of the human person is what this is all about. And so if you can be there with a smile on your face every day, if you can turn up every day the best that you can, and you can keep yourself healthy, well, safe, engaged, then you're going to impart that onto others. And boy, this world needs it, right? It really needs it at the moment, what we're seeing going on around us. We need people who will stand up for others. We need people who are there when others fall over to pick them up. That's what we do every day as a school. But the way to do that is to bring community in, okay, is to bring people closer, is to bring people into your organisation as much as you can. We do that with our parents. You will have seen already this morning when you walked in, hundreds of parents walking around the place, okay? If the parents aren't with you on this journey, it's really hard to make a difference. We need that circle of care around these young people more than ever. And so we've got to inspire them. And that's our thing, learn, inspire, serve. We're a Catholic school in the Lasallian tradition. Our teachings come from the church. Just like Caritas, we're there to care for people. We're there to make a difference in their lives. And that's what you're here doing today. You're upskilling yourself. You're hearing different perspective, and hopefully one little thing that I've said to you today, you can take back and put that into practice. And if that makes a difference in the life of a young person, hooray. All right, well done. Congratulations on your journey, and thank you for the work that you're doing, okay?
Applause to you. Words of wisdom indeed. Love, care, and serve has always been the anchor point of our social missions of Caritas. Love, care, and serve. I want to thank all of you for your caring, for your loving, and for your serving alongside with one another. Can you turn to the person sitting next to you and say, big thank you for loving, serving, and caring. As you do that, can we give our panelists a round of applause? Presenting to you, Dr. Chris, Dr. Elaine, Mr. Bradley. Thank you very much, everybody. All right.